Ever the controversial figure in wrestling, Dave Meltzer has once again given us numerous star ratings this year, from which we can debate the validity of this one man's opinion. And while some people see his opinion as the end all be all doctrine of pro wrestling, and other people completely disregard him, I'm somewhere in the middle where I like to use it as a reference and I enjoy hearing his critiques because he is genuinely one of the most insightful minds in the business, but also am able to formulate my own opinions about matches outside of what he says. And today, we are going to be doing just that, taking Meltzer's star ratings for certain matches and applying my own critical analysis to them to see if every Dave Meltzer 5-star match of 2024 is deserving of that rating. Now, I'm not going to be arguing whether a match that received 5.5 stars deserved that or whether it was a 4.25 match. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm just saying whether every single one of his matches that he rated 5 stars or more deserved to cross that 5-star threshold. We have 25 matches that we are going to talk about from many different promotions across the world. And essentially, I'm just going to be giving a brief overview of why I think the match qualifies or if it doesn't. And this isn't like I'm going to be reviewing every match. If you would like to see that, I have many pay-per-view reviews on this channel that you can go check out. So let's see whether Dave knows his stuff or whether I'm just completely talking out of my ass and have no idea what I'm talking about. With all that being said, I am Isaiah from Hot Tag Wrestling. I thank you guys very much for watching, and let's get into it with our first match. We're going to go chronologically and start at the very beginning of the year, and we're starting with one of the first pay-per-views of the year, that being New Japan's Wrestle Kingdom. And the first match we're looking at is Kazuchika Okada versus Bryan Danielson. I think this match was far superior than their match the previous year at Forbidden Door. I think it had a more interesting layer of storytelling to it. I think the action was probably comparable, but Bryan Danielson having the eye injury and Okada sort of exploiting that, and also the dynamic of Okada being on his way out of New Japan and this being one of his last high profile matches, really gives this match the sense of occasion that Danielson versus Okada deserves. And I think that the occasion, the storytelling, the action all warrants this match the 5-star rating. I think it's an absolutely fantastic match. What a way for both these guys and New Japan to really start off the year on a high. This is an absolutely phenomenal match. I think a lot of people forget it because it was so early in the year, but it really started things off with a high. Absolutely fantastic. Absolutely deserves 5 stars. Next, we're going to jump over to Mexico and CMLL, where we're looking at Mascara Dorada 2.0 versus Templario. And what I'll say about this match is this was an amazing execution of a match that I'm just not really a fan of the style of. The Lucha Libre style of match is absolutely phenomenal, can give you some incredible high spots. Some people really are fans of it, but it's just not for me. It's a little too cooperative for me at many points, and I can see the strings of the match too much where it doesn't seem like a real fight. It doesn't seem like I'm watching two guys trying to win a match. It seems like I'm watching two guys help each other to do a gymnastics routine at some point. And that did plague portions of this match. So I do not think this match was deserving of the 5-star rating. It is an excellent execution of the Lucha Libre style, but that style needs to be executed at the absolute pinnacle of its ability in order to cross that 5-star threshold, and I unfortunately do not think this match was able to do that. Next, we are going back over to New Japan for the first of 2 matches from the Battle in the Valley pay-per-view, starting with Shingo Takagi versus Jon Moxley. And I'm surprised this got 5 stars, because in my mind, this nowhere approaches 5 stars. It's a plunder brawl, and a very good plunder brawl at that, but ultimately, that's what it is. It doesn't have a really good ingrained story, and the action in it isn't good enough to really make it unique or memorable or separated from any of the other plunder brawls you see on every single pay-per-view in 2024. So while this match was good and fun for what it was, I can't really see how it even comes close to the 5-star threshold. So absolutely, this match does not qualify in my opinion. We're going to chug along now to the main event where Kazuchika Okada was taking on Will Ospreay. And this match had a very unique dynamic, Ospreay being the sort of protege to Okada, and Okada obviously being the champion of champions in New Japan. So a unique dynamic there. Also an interesting dynamic because both guys were on their way out of the company, and this was one of their final New Japan appearances prior to going to AEW. And it's Okada versus Ospreay, so you know you're getting phenomenal action. However, I don't think this match reaches the 5-star threshold. For me, the entire time watching it, it more felt like they were playing a 5-star match than actually putting on one. It had all the framework of what would be considered 5 stars in great action, unique storytelling, a 40-minute long main event, but it just didn't have any of the heart. There was no emotion in there. There was nothing to really make me jump out of my seat and go, oh my gosh, this is an incredible match. This is a match I'll remember for the rest of my life, which is really what a 5-star match needs to be. This was just another great match from both competitors, but really didn't have anything to make it stand out from other matches in their catalog. So I personally do not think this is a 5-star match. And we're going to end January with another Will Ospreay match. I hope you guys like hearing that name. This time he moved out of New Japan, but wasn't to AEW yet. He made a stopover in TNA where he wrestled Josh Alexander on an episode of Impact TV. And this really had an occasion to it. This felt like a big fight because you had Will Ospreay, who's generally considered one of the best, if not the best, wrestlers on the planet, coming to TNA, a company that he's never really had a stint in. He's wrestled there before, but he's never been a TNA guy, wrestling Josh Alexander, who is very much a TNA guy. He was the world champion for like almost a full calendar year, if not exceeding that, in 2022. So it was the best in the world, an interloper coming up to face the best TNA has to offer. And they absolutely delivered on the action. There was some phenomenal stuff in here, some really great stuff out on the ramp that really sticks in my mind more so than any of the other action in this match. But it had that feel. The crowd was really into it. It had incredible action throughout. I feel this absolutely does warrant the 5-star rating. This was a phenomenal match, the best TNA match of the year, the best TNA match probably I've ever seen. I think this is better than Ospreay and Bayley from the year before. This is just, I don't have enough good things to say about this match. I love Ospreay, I love Alexander, and seeing the two of them come together, put on this classic match, it's such a treat to see. So absolutely go out of your way to see this match if you haven't already seen it, because I feel like it doesn't get enough love. Absolutely, this is a 5-star match. We're now into February and back to New Japan, where we're at the New Beginning in Osaka, where Bryan Danielson is taking on Zack Sabre Jr. And I'm not going to keep you guys in suspense for very long. Absolutely, this is a 5-star match. This is one of my favorite matches of the year. Bryan Danielson's the greatest wrestler of all time. Zack Sabre Jr. is probably my favorite wrestler on planet Earth right now. So having the two come together and just have the best possible match you could imagine these two having. Such an incredible display of technical wrestling. And I don't really like to use the term technical wrestling a lot because I feel it diminishes what people do by categorizing them and putting them in boxes. But this was the greatest technical wrestling match you've ever seen in your entire life. It definitely trounced the match they had the year before, which was also a 5-star match. So that should speak to the quality of this match. I can't really put into words how great this match was or why it was great. You just have to sort of go and watch it and experience it alongside the Japanese crowd. And they were such a credit to this match, the crowd was, because in Japan, they have a different appreciation for wrestling than North American fans do. They appreciate more so the technical aspect of the business and the artistry of a match. So things like rope breaks or submission holds that are put on in a unique way get pops from the crowd in the same way a high spot would in North America. So this was the perfect setting for this match to take place, and they just went out and delivered on every single beat you could hope them to deliver on. Absolutely 100% more than most other matches this year, this deserves to be a 5-star match. Next, we're jumping back to Will Ospreay, but not quite to AEW yet, just a little bit longer to wait because he has to do a stop in Rev Pro for his last British independent match. I say quotations there because he'll probably have some in the future. AEW's pretty good about that. But he was going up at Rev Pro High Stakes versus Michael Oku. Now, these two had a fantastic match a few years ago. I say fantastic. I haven't actually seen it, and that's poo-poo on me. But I have seen this match, and it was absolutely incredible, and it absolutely deserves 5 stars. The action in it is incredible. It tells a brilliant story where both guys went in super hot. Ospreay was the sort of hero going out on his shield, his final British independent wrestling match after all of these years of being one of the pillars of the Brit Res scene. And Michael Oku, who is the guy right now, the British wrestler right now to be concerned about. So it felt like a big match. And Ospreay and Oku sort of had a split crowd decision where they were both getting equal numbers of cheers in the crowd. And Ospreay just did such a fantastic job about turning the crowd on him and playing the heel in the match to give Oku his big moment. It was really, really great to see. And it's one of the matches that has really contributed to the British independent rise over the last few years to where it is slowly getting back to the place it was in the mid 2010s. And Michael Oku is going to be a pillar of that movement. And this match really solidified it. So yes, absolutely. This is a phenomenal match. Go out of your way to see it if you haven't. 5 stars all day long. Now we're into March, and Will Ospreay has finally made his way into AEW. And does he deliver on big matches? Boy, does he, because the rest of this list is pretty much just Will Ospreay. And we're starting at Revolution when Will Ospreay took on Konosuke Takeshita. And when I first watched this match, I was sitting on my couch, ready to be blown away by Will Ospreay. And I wasn't sitting for very long because this match had me on my feet. And that's not hyperbole. That's not over exaggeration. Very few wrestling matches this year have given me the feeling that Ospreay Takeshita did. Just the pure brilliance of the action. Moves that hit 100% perfectly to the point where this is one of those matches where you go, oh, these guys aren't having a wrestling match. They're genuinely trying to hurt each other because there's no way Takeshita's forearms aren't concussing Will Ospreay. And there's no way Ospreay isn't breaking Takeshita's jaw every time he super kicks him. The action in this match was absolutely out of this world. And there's not really a whole lot story-wise to this match other than these are two of the best on the planet and they're competing to see who is the best. When I saw this match, I thought nothing could top it as match of the year. Something did, which we'll talk about in just a few entries. But yes, 5-star match all day. Absolutely phenomenal. You're not going to see a whole lot of better action this year out of any man or any other wrestler on the planet. And it was such a great way for Ospreay to introduce himself as now a full-time member of the AEW roster. But Ospreay didn't stop there. The greedy little twerp had another 5-star match just 5 days later on AEW Dynamite versus Kyle Fletcher. And this is a really statement-making match saying, no matter what you turn into, a pay-per-view, an episode of Dynamite, Collision, Rampage, I'm going to give you the best match you've ever seen in your life. I'm going to try as hard as I possibly can to wow you every single night of the week. And I think that feeling is partially what contributes to the 5-star rating that both Dave Meltzer gave it and that I think it is worthy of. This is absolutely a 5-star match. You have a similar dynamic to what was present in Okada versus Ospreay earlier in the year, but now Ospreay is the mentor and Fletcher is the protege. And it's two guys going out and having an incredible match where you know they're friends. And there's no serious rivalry. There's no real heel versus face dynamic. But it is one of those matches that applies the old wrestling adage of if you go out there and wrestle one of your best friends, you're going to hit each other harder than you would a complete stranger because you have that trust in each other. And these guys clearly had that trust in each other and went on to put just a fantastic match on Dynamite, really make a stamp on Will Ospreay's first week in AEW, and show that Kyle Fletcher is someone who deserves to be in the main event scene. But we're going to talk about both of them later as well. All right, we're out of March and now into April, and we're looking at Wrestle Dynasty, another AEW pay-per-view, and it is Bryan Danielson taking on, Will Ospreay again. Another 5-star Will Ospreay match. When I am rating matches, I don't go above 5 stars. I think the pinnacle that a wrestling match can get is 5 stars because that shows absolute perfection in the craft. But if I could give a match more than 5 stars, this would be the match to do it. This is the best wrestling match I've ever seen. And as it's the end of the year now, and that happened in April, I think the recency bias has chipped away to where I can confidently say I've never seen a better wrestling match than Bryan Danielson versus Will Ospreay. The action, the storytelling, the atmosphere, everything combined into a perfect little package. And the thing that I love about it most is that I went into it with this little pit in my stomach, this little bit of trepidation in me going, what if it's not awesome? What if it's just good? What if they have a very good, what if they even have a great match, but it's not the greatest match I've ever seen? They don't blow me away. They don't have a match of the year. They don't have a 5-star match. What if that doesn't happen? This dream match doesn't live up to the expectation. There was this nervousness going in that it wouldn't live up to the expectations fans were putting on it, but boy, did it. They took our expectations and knocked them out of the park further than we could have ever dreamed. It's, like I said, it's the greatest wrestling match I've ever seen in my entire life. And I can't say much more than that. If any match on this list you haven't seen this year, this is the match I recommend. Go out of your way to watch it because it's absolutely perfect. We've had a pretty good run so far. We've had a few no's, but mostly we've said yes, these are all 5-star matches. But now's the point in the video where I have to be a little bit of a Debbie Downer and start giving out a lot of X's to matches. And we're going to start with WWE Backlash, Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles. And this match accomplished so many things that fans didn't expect it to. It was the first Cody Rhodes title defense since beating Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. So it needed to be a big time match. And it delivered from every possible aspect. It was AJ Styles' first time really in the main event scene. Sure, he did a little bit of triple 4-way stuff with Roman and Randy and LA Knight at the beginning of the year. But really, as a singles competitor, this is his first foray into the title division in a long time. So he had to reestablish himself. And boy, did he. And they had to go out there and have a main event match to really cement what this WWE title run would be. And boy, did they. This match over-delivered on every front, every hurdle you could have set up for it. They knocked it down. But it's not a 5-star match. The action in it just doesn't really live up to that high standard. And this one is a personal opinion. Similarly to Mascara Dorado versus Templario from earlier in the video, I don't like the style of match that they wrestled in this video, where towards the end of the match, in the last 5 to 8 minutes, you hit a big move, you sell for 30 seconds. You get up, the other guy hits a big move, you sell for 30 seconds. They get up, the other guy hits a big move, you sell for 30 seconds. And that sort of stop, start pace to the action just always takes me out of it. And this is prevalent in a lot of matches, and this has held many great matches that people on the internet love, down from a 5-star rating, in my opinion. It's the reason I wouldn't give Omega Okada 4 5 stars or Omega Ospreay 2 5 stars. It suffers from the same thing where it's just too stop-start for me to really be invested in the action. So while this match had an amazing crowd, reestablished AJ Styles, really set the tone for Cody Rhodes' run, really did so many things perfectly, the action really couldn't hold up to the 5-star standard, and it falls below the mark as a result. And now we're jumping back over to Japan, but we're not going back to New Japan quite yet. We are going over to Pro Wrestling Noah, where Tomohiro Ishii took on Masa Kitamiya at No, a One Night Dream 2. And this is another one for me where I'm going, really? This match got 5 stars? It's a good match. It's probably a great match, but it's not a 5 star match. It's wrestled in a style where you have to capture a very specific type of energy to really have a great match. That sort of strong style, brawling, hard hitting style is very hard for a few matches to encompass. And those that do succeed tremendously as a result. But this just didn't have it for me. I was never watching this match going, oh my gosh, I can't believe they kicked out of that. Or, oh my gosh, these guys are absolutely beating the hell out of each other. I was just sort of sitting there going, yeah, this is another Tomohiro Ishii match. This was like a pretty standard one. And I was pretty surprised that this one got 5 stars, in my opinion, because it is way below the mark. Next, we're jumping back over to CMLL for Zack Sabre Jr. versus Hechicero. And this is a match that I wanted so bad to be 5 stars. I was kneeling down next to my bed and praying to God, Lord, please let this match be incredible. Please let this be the best match I've ever seen. And it just wasn't. It was a phenomenal match. It was excellent in many regards, but it wasn't 5 stars. And I think something that set this match back a little bit is it had to follow on the heels of Sabre versus Danielson from earlier in the year, which is this style of match executed to its highest potential. So seeing this match that didn't quite live up to it, it sort of didn't really work for me. But that's not the only reason. It's not death by comparison. It's also because I feel like this match didn't really have a story to it. It was two guys who went out and threw a lot of holds on each other. Sabre got a hold, then Hechicero got a hold, then Sabre got a hold, back and forth and back and forth. But there was no real story to it. They didn't effectively tell an interesting piece of pro wrestling history in it, as snobby and douchey as that sound. It was just guys throwing a lot of holds and a lot of creative holds, getting into them ways you've never seen before and executing them very well, but just not really getting over the mark, not doing something that really left me blown away saying, wow, that was a great piece of wrestling media. I think it gets close. It's probably 4.5 or 4.75 stars, but it's not 5 stars. And out of any other match in this year, this one's the one I'm probably most disappointed to say that about. Next, we are back to AEW, and we're looking at Will Ospreay versus Swerve Strickland from Forbidden Door. And this was a match that had incredible action throughout. Some of the best action you'll see all year. And really, it was a dream match kind of setup because not only are Strickland and Ospreay two of the best wrestlers on the planet, their styles complement each other so much. They're the kind of guys who you look at and go, oh yeah, those two guys could have a 5-star match together. Just put them together and let them go. But it's not a 5-star match. And this one will probably get me a lot of slack because this is an absolutely beloved match this year. But I think it's not a 5-star match. And it's partly because I'm persnickety about wrestling a little bit. There's one thing in this match that holds me down. Just one spot in the 30-minute run of this match, probably about 30 seconds of it, holds it back from being a 5-star match. And that is when Will Ospreay is attempting to stab or screw, or I don't know what he was trying to impale Prince Nana, I guess, with a screwdriver. And I just hate these spots in pro wrestling where someone is about to do something awful, but then looks at their hands and has a come to Jesus realization that no, I'm not this awful person. I'm better than that. And then they go in the ring and lose immediately. And it wasn't exactly presented as that in the match, but it was pretty close. It was so over the top, so goofy, so cliched, so just, it was cringe is what it was. And I'm not a young person. I'm not on TikTok, so I'm not qualified to use the word cringe, but that spot was cringe. And it really just completely took me out of the match, and they weren't able to get me back over the course of the remaining few minutes. That was really the death nail in this match for me when I went, Come on, guys. We can't just stick to the in-ring stuff. We can't just have a great match. We have to do some goofy sports entertainment nonsense on the outside. In Will Ospreay versus Swerve Strickland, we're throwing sports entertainment in there. It was just a real letdown of a spot and completely took the wind out of me for the rest of the match. And if you don't mind those spots, then yes, this could probably be a 5-star match for you. But I mind them. I mind them a lot. And as a result, I couldn't do it. I could not give this match 5 stars. Sticking in AEW and sticking with Will Ospreay, we're looking at Will Ospreay versus MJF from Dynamite. And there are two camps of thought in this match. There are two ways you could have viewed this match and gotten two very different experiences out of it. If you watched it on TNT and you watched it with commercial breaks and you weren't watching what was happening in the building while the commercials were going on, yes, absolutely, you would consider this a 5-star match because the action, the storytelling, everything that happened bell to bell was absolutely perfect pro wrestling. But if you watch your AEW on Triller like I do, or you're watching it on some other platform where you do watch during the commercial breaks and you see what happens in picture, there was a lot of boring stuff in this match, a lot of extended heat sequences, a lot of selling on the outside where like someone gets put through a table, then they immediately go to commercial, and then that person's just selling for 2 minutes until they get back from picture. And it just completely sucked the life out of me. It was so up, down, up, down, up, down. And it, I don't know. I hate in AEW when they say, oh, we're at commercial. It's time to be super boring and it's time to just slow down the action and make sure that everyone who paid for a ticket tonight does not get the viewing experience that they deserve. And this match, more than any this year, was really emblematic of that for me. So if you didn't watch during the commercial breaks, I completely understand why you would consider this a 5-star match. I don't, because I was watching it during the commercial breaks. I saw the boring bits, I lived through them, and I sort of hated them. So I couldn't possibly give this match 5 stars. We're going to put a pause on Will Ospreay and AEW for a second, and we're going to jump back to New Japan, where we're looking at the G1 Climax and Konosuke Takeshita taking on El Phantasmo. And if I'm being honest, I'm surprised this got 5 stars because this probably wouldn't fall in my top 10 favorite matches from this year's G1 Climax. I think there was a lot that was better than this. The finals and the semifinal matches were all better. Konosuke Takeshita had 2 better matches with Yota Tsuji in this tournament. Zack Sabre Jr. had better matches. Shingo had better matches. I just feel like this was the sort of archetypical style of a 5-star match without any of the soul. So no, this doesn't really reach 5 stars for me. It's probably 4.5 stars. It's a great match, but it just doesn't have any personality. It's 2 guys going out there and hitting a lot of big moves and doing a lot of high spots and a lot of things to really pop the crowd, but it's just a lot of cool moves. This is anything you would really see on Dynamite. There's nothing to really make this stand out or register as fantastic pro wrestling, other than the fact that you have 2 fantastic pro wrestlers in there. But I was so shocked when this got 5 stars because there were other matches that I would have expected to get 5 stars that didn't. Yota versus Zack in the finals was better than this. Shingo versus Zack, Yota versus Konosuke. Their 2 matches were better than this. So I don't really see how this comes close to 5 stars. And we're back to AEW and back to Will Ospreay, and I promise I will get back into complimenting some matches in just a few minutes, but I got to dunk on one more because this match didn't quite reach the mark for me. It was close. It was probably closer than most other matches this year to reaching that 5-star threshold. It just didn't quite get there for me. It didn't have that spark in me. It didn't make me really get excited. It didn't make me remember why I love pro wrestling. It was just a lot of great stuff happening in front of me, but I don't think I necessarily had an emotional connection with it like I did some other matches in this list. This match never really blew me away in terms of its quality. Like if we look at Ospreay versus Takeshita, that made my heart jump into my mouth. And Ospreay versus Fletcher, that really took me aback and made me shocked by how great it was. But this match was just as good as I thought it was going to be and not any better. So as a result, I don't give it 5 stars. And this is one of the hardest ones to explain. But I think as pro wrestling fans, we sort of get it, where there are some matches that everyone goes, yes, that is technically a 5 star match. Yes, that is technically a great match, but I just don't love it like other people do. I don't know. There's something within the body of the match that just sort of holds me back from really going full brunt with my adoration in it. And I can't really pinpoint what it was, but that feeling sort of permeates this entire match for me. So it falls back as a result. And this one's on me more so than it is on the match. This is me not really, I don't want to say not getting it, but not really connecting with it like I should. So, not the match's fault. In anyone else's book, this probably would be 5 stars, but for me, it's just a little bit short of the mark. So that was a long string of me just dogging on a bunch of matches. It's finally time for me to talk about a match I can just luxuriate in how great it is. We're at All In, and we are seeing Bryan Danielson winning the AEW title from Swerve Strickland. And this is pretty much the polar opposite to Ospreay versus Takeshita, which we talked about at Revolution earlier in the year, where this was a lot of story followed by the action. The action was almost secondary to the story of Danielson putting his career on the line with his family, his wife and kids in the front row, and Swerve just doing this incredible job about completely abandoning all the goodwill he's built up over the past year, turning into the biggest babyface in the company, and just being the biggest dickhead you could possibly imagine any wrestler to be, stomping Danielson's face in front of his family, making his kids cry in the front row. It was just a beautiful match in terms of crowd psychology, and this took place in Wembley Stadium, where there was probably whatever 80 to 100,000 people. There could have been a billion people in that arena. All of England could have been in that arena with how loud those crowd reactions were and how much they loved Bryan Danielson. And this felt like an occasion. More than any other match this year, this felt like a piece of history. This felt like something AEW will be putting in their highlight reels and will be talking about 20 years down the line. An absolutely fantastic match from every way you can look at it. So yes, this absolutely deserved the 5 stars it received. Now we're jumping ahead just by about a week to have Will Ospreay defend his newly won international title against Pac at All Out. And this is another one of those dream matches who you go, oh, Pac's one of the best wrestlers on planet Earth. Oh my God, Will Ospreay is one of the best professional wrestlers on planet Earth. If you put them together, they'll just have one of the greatest matches you've ever seen. And they did. But there was one thing that holds it back from being 5 stars, in my opinion. One thing that really detracts from this match. And once again, this is going to be one of the matches where I'm a little bit persnickety about it. And there's one thing that most people could probably ignore, but me being my snobby wrestling mark just couldn't really get over it. They were on the apron probably about 5 or 10 minutes into the match, and Pac hit a German suplex on the apron to Ospreay, which was a great spot. It looked incredible. There was a lot to love about it. But then right after, Ospreay was back up, and Pac gave him a poison rana on the apron. And I saw that and I went, man, that's a little bit heavy, because that is a move that would kill someone if this was real, if this wasn't the fiction of pro wrestling. Ospreay would be dead if that really happened, because he landed straight on his head. And they did it, and they got a 2 count, and they got a near fall, and then 30 seconds later, Ospreay was just back on offense like nothing happened. And it's probably just a spot in a match where something really cool happened and it really popped the crowd. And that's how most people looked at it. And that's how you should look at it, to have just the most fun you could possibly have with this match. But it really took me out of it, and it really removed me from the fiction, and my suspension of disbelief was never really able to be refocused for the rest of the match. And the ending was lacking because of that, in my opinion. So this falls just short. This would be a definite 4 3/4, but not 5 stars. We are now going back to WWE for our second and final 5-star match from the Fed this year, looking at Drew McIntyre taking on CM Punk inside Hell in a Cell at Bad Blood in October. And similarly to Cody versus AJ from earlier in the video, I'm going to talk about how great this match was and all the incredible things it accomplished, while also saying it wasn't a 5-star match. And that's a weird dichotomy to express, but stick with me because I think I can do it. This match really did a bunch of great things. It reestablished Hell in a Cell as a stipulation to be the feud ender, the big blow off match, the sort of atmosphere it possessed in the late 90s that it lost due to oversaturation in the mid 2000s. And it also was the proper feud ender, one of the hottest feuds of the year that really hadn't had a great match up to that point. SummerSlam underwhelmed, Bash in Berlin underwhelmed because they were a little bit more focused on story than action. That was not present in this match. It was all action. The things that hold this match back for me is CM Punk is not the most polished worker. A lot of his stuff is sloppy and messy. And when he was in the indies, that was on purpose because he was the punk indie rock wrestler. He was the guy wrestling in gyms and garages. So it didn't look real. It looked real. It wasn't polished. And that was to his credit when he was on the independent scene. But now in WWE, when the expectation is that it looks polished, it just sort of, it has this disconnect with all the other wrestling you watch on Raw, on SmackDown, on pay-per-view throughout the rest of the year. And I also don't think it did a good job about fully utilizing the stipulation. Even though it did a good job reestablishing it, this was really more of a hardcore match than it was a Hell in a Cell match. They didn't really get the most out of the cage. They probably did one spot where they threw each other into it, but then maybe it was tables and steps and chairs and toolboxes and all that stuff, but not really a Hell in a Cell match. So those two things are the main thing that detracted down from 5 stars. If you came to me and said, this is a 5-star match, this is my favorite match of all time, I would 100% believe you. But for me, being that sort of push my glasses up, smarter than you wrestling fan that I think I am, I couldn't give it 5 stars. Now we're going back to AEW for Wrestle Dream. This time we're in a triple threat match. Konosuke Takeshita versus Will Ospreay and Ricochet. And this is another one of those matches where I was going, really? This is a match that gets 5 stars? And this is sort of one of the ones that just applies to Meltzer's preferences in wrestling, where there was a lot of big spots throughout, a lot of stuff to pop the crowd, but not the psychology or storytelling beats that you would normally associate with a 5-star match. And this didn't just get 5 stars. This got like 5.5 stars, which really sort of tinkered with my mind a little bit, because I thought this match was good and a lot of fun, but nowhere even approaching 5 stars. This was a 4.5-star match because it was just a lot of spots. And while those spots were fun, they were just spots and could never really move past this. It couldn't move past a spot fest to really be something memorable that I'll take away going, wow, that was the greatest thing I've ever seen. So yeah, no, not a 5-star match. Now I realized I just dogged on the last match for being pretty much a spot fest where the only thing it had was a lot of cool moves, and that's why it wasn't a 5-star match. And now we're going to talk about a spot fest that had a lot of cool moves and is a 5-star match. And I understand I'm contradicting myself there, but Konosuke Takeshita versus Mike Bailey from MLP Forged in Excellence absolutely was a 5-star match because it was a singles match, which helped, so it's not totally based on spots. There is more ability to incorporate those storytelling elements that you typically associate with great matches. And I think the action in this match was better than it was in the triple threat. Everything in this match looked perfect. Takeshita's forearms, Bailey's kicks, all of their big high spots, everything worked incredibly together. And it was able to reach that zenith at the end, that sort of pinnacle where you go, there's no way he can kick out. There's no way he can kick out. and then he kicks out. And then there's another 3 minutes left in the match, and you're going, what the hell are they doing? How could they possibly get to this point? And how can they continue to build to hold my interest through the rest? But they just keep doing it. They keep building and building and building, and the drama and the tension keeps rising, and it's sort of a feat to do, because after the finisher kick out 2.99 spot that you would associate with being one of the final spots of the match, they have like another 6 near falls after that, and each one keeps getting better than the last. This is a feat of pro wrestling and absolutely a 5-star match. We're into November, we're back into Japan, and we are talking about Zack Sabre Jr. defending the IWGP Heavyweight title against Shingo Takagi at Power Struggle. And this is a match similar to Ospreay versus MJF for me, because I didn't give this 5 stars because it just didn't have the feeling for me. It had all the framework of a great match, and I absolutely loved it, but it didn't really spark anything within me. It didn't stand out as being particularly memorable from any other great Shingo Takagi match or any other great Zack Sabre Jr. match. There was just this little disconnect that it had with me, where I'm sure people could watch this match and really fall in love with it in a way I didn't, but they just weren't really able to enrapture me. I was entertained throughout, but I wasn't on the hook for every single near fall. I wasn't biting on every piece of action like I am in most 5-star matches. So this one falls just below the mark. It's easily a 4 3/4 stars, but couldn't quite get to 5. Close to the end now, 2 matches left, and we're starting with Ospreay taking on Kyle Fletcher at Full Gear. And this was as good as their match earlier in the year, but with new added unique storytelling elements to it. So it's better than a 5-star match earlier in the year. So of course this receives 5 stars. Fletcher recently having turned heel adds this new interesting dynamic where now they're not friends going out to try to one-up each other and prove who's the best. They are bitter enemies. They hate each other, and they do such a good job about expressing that in the match, where every single spot looks like they're trying to kill each other. The stuff on the outside with the steel steps dropping each other straight on their heads. You feel like these guys are trying to hurt each other, and they're not going to stop until one person is dead. One person is unable to stand up and leave the building on their own volition. And it was such a brilliant match as a result. They were able to strike that tone right at the beginning and carry it throughout the entire 25-minute runtime, which is something that's so hard to do and so many matches fail to do. But this match accomplished it. It was excellent, and it's an absolute 5-star classic. And we're here, our last 5-star match of the year in December on Dynamite. It was Will Ospreay taking on Darby Allin in the Continental Classic. And I love this match. There were some spots in this match that absolutely blew my mind. I was watching it with my girlfriend, and she even came up for some of the spots, and she hates pro wrestling. And it was really one of the greatest TV matches you could ever hope to see, but it fell just short of the 5-star mark. Because while it did have some incredible spots, the space in between those spots wasn't really anything special. I never really got the feeling that I was watching a true piece of pro wrestling greatness other than in those small little snapshots within the match. It was little segments that had 5-star energy to them, but all the connecting pieces, the threads that interwove this match, didn't really match up to the highs that those spots were able to deliver. So while this match did have elements of greatness, the entire thing wasn't great. So no, it is not a 5-star match. And that's every single Dave Meltzer 5-star match of 2024 rated by myself to see if they stand up to that illustrious threshold. I got a few statistics for you. There were 25 matches this year that Dave Meltzer gave 5 stars. Out of those, 10 matches I agree with met that criteria. For his matches, out of the 25 matches, MJF had 2 5-star matches, Okada had 2, Strickland had 2, Fletcher and Takagi both had 2, Zack Sabre Jr. had 3, Konosuke Takeshita had 4, alongside Bryan Danielson with 4, and Will Ospreay had an astounding 13 out of 25 matches reach 5 stars. Over half of this list was Will Ospreay. So I hope you're a fan, because we talked a lot about him in this run. Most of the matches on the list were AEW. There were a decent amount in New Japan, 2 from CMLL, 2 from WWE. There was an Impact, there was a Rev Pro, there was a Noah, there was an MLP, but pretty spaced out, more so than you would have seen in previous years. But I guess my overall thoughts doing this video is Dave Meltzer is much more generous than I am when giving out 5-star matches. And there are a certain kind of match, the matches that are able to create incredible spots that really pop the crowd more so than any other spots in wrestling this year, that apply to his fancy and that are able to reach that 5-star threshold. Whereas I'm more of a stickler. I feel like they have to have the great action as well as the great story and create an atmosphere that truly feels historic and get this buzz in me that goes, I am truly watching a piece of pro wrestling greatness, something that can send me back to my childhood and make me feel like I'm a kid again watching WWE for the first time. And out of the 25 matches that Meltzer rated this year, I gave 10 of them 5 stars. But those aren't the only matches that I gave 5 stars to. There are a few matches that Meltzer didn't give 5 stars that I thought were worthy of the nod. And I'm going to talk about those in a future video where I go over every 5-star match from 2024 as rated by me. So keep your eyes out for that in the future. I want to thank you guys very much for watching. If you thought the video was up to it, please consider subscribing, leaving a comment, or leaving a like, as it does help a new channel like mine to grow. But with all that being said, I have been Isaiah from Hot Tag Wrestling. I thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you next time.